Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the President of the United States of America. If this image doesn't infuriate you as an American, well, then you probably don't care about the United States. You probably don't care about foreign policy, and you probably just voted for Biden because the orange man is bad. In this photo, it's Emmanuel Macron of France, and he's given Joe Biden the business. He's had enough. You can see Joe Biden's all flustered and frustrated, like, come on. You got Macron doing a finger wag at Joe Biden. This next image, also very, very bad. Macron leans in to a sad and somber looking Joe Biden who seems too incompetent and feeble to stand up for American interests. When France is getting in the face of the U.S. president who can look only scared, pathetic, and weak, I get triggered by that. I do. No, I'm not going to pretend like it's the end of the world or I'm like all that mad, like, oh, you know, America's ruined. No, I'm just frustrated by this. Joe Biden clearly is not all there. And it's not just conservatives in America that are pointing it out, though, for the most part, when it comes to the news, you're typically not going to see any left-wing sources mention that Biden's brain don't work. However, Australia is starting to notice it. And that's very serious because Australia is concerned about a potential war with China, and they'll need the United States as an ally. Australian TV and websites have been pointing out that Biden ain't all with it right now. And I guess you can make complaints about Donald Trump. I guess you can say that Donald Trump was bombastic, but certainly not weak. Do you think Emmanuel Macron or anyone for that matter would have come out and gotten in the face of Donald Trump? No. Because for all the things that Trump is, weak isn't one of them. No, he's the opposite. He's aggressive, overly aggressive. In fact, I got to say, I think Joe Biden is almost like the mirror opposite of Donald Trump. Trump, of course, is a loud, brash, brazen individual, very confident, to say the least. And Joe Biden is a quiet, feeble, pathetic, weak old man. Donald Trump would speak for hours just off the top of his head. Joe Biden's in mental decline. Donald Trump's an outsider. Joe Biden's an insider. Now, I want to give a shout out to a sponsor today, Ground.News. They're helping support this channel. I don't normally take sponsors on this channel, but there's a reason why I want to shout them out. I want to show you a little bit about what they got. Go in the link below. It's ground.news/TimPool1. It'll automatically direct you to wherever you can download the app. It's a great service. It really, really is. You may have noticed I've been using their browser extension because on stories where they actually track the bias, you can see who's not getting this news. So when you look at these stories about Joe Biden, you're actually not getting any left-wing sources. Ground News reports, or I should say, it's from OAN. Australian TV, Biden is illiterate, incoherent, and cognitively deficient. See, this is how I find out about a lot of these stories because I'm trying to look through things I may miss. OAN reports that Australian TV says it's about Joe Biden, and as we can see, no one else is covering it. But it's true. Here's news.com.au. Concerns for Joe Biden's mental capacity raised amid gaffes at G7. We have another story, this one also from news.com.au. Biden is a weak, frail, cognitive mess. This is what people in Australia are saying about us right now. Well, that photo about Macron was apparently their anger at us over what was going on in Libya. But I do want to shout out one other thing that I find particularly valuable with Ground.News, and it's the blind spot feature. So seriously, really cool stuff. And I'm really grateful that Ground News is sponsoring the show. Again, link in the description below, ground.news/TimPool1, the number 1. Check this out. You can type in someone's Twitter handle and it'll show you. It says Tim Pool, 55% of the news Timcast interacts with on Twitter leans left. That's true. And you know what's really interesting about this? There's that study I often cite talking about moderates and conservatives and how conservatives get like 2/3 of their news from conservative sources and 1/3 from liberal sources. Moderates get their news from 2/3 liberal sources and 1/3 conservative. And liberals just only get mainstream media. It makes sense. I'm moderate, right? Moderate center left slightly. And yeah, I interact with mostly news on the left, 21% center, 24% conservative. And I think it very much makes sense. But anyway, check out the link in the description below. Let's get back to the story at hand. What's happening right here? Politico, when we see Macron bullying and just, I mean, this photo is is bad. Joe Biden seems, let me just stress this. We don't know exactly what Macron is saying to Joe Biden, but look at Joe Biden's face. His brow is furrowed. He's raising his hand, clearly getting yelled at by Macron. Macron then leans in, and Biden just basically looks like he's given up and given in. Trump would have stood up and gotten his face and screamed at him. We don't need France, these countries getting up in our face. But I got to be honest. What's happening in France? Well, you have former generals. You have high profile personalities warning about wokeness and calling it out. So, yeah, maybe this is should be a wake up call to America, because France typically is the butt of many jokes, where they're surrendering in World War II. And now Emmanuel Macron's coming to our president. That's what you get when you get with Joe Biden. That's what you get when you get with Joe Biden. That's right. Here's the story from Politico. Macron pitches Biden on plan to get foreign fighters out of Libya. It sounds so weak compared to the photos that you see. Pitches plan. No, I don't think he's pitching. Okay, fine. Maybe you could argue he's pitching something. No, he's yelling and he's like scolding Biden, who just sits there and embarrasses us, who can't handle tough questions and has outbursts of rage for no reason. He can't deal with the stresses of this job, and he should never have been president in the first place, in my opinion. This guy should not have run. But you know what? The orange man bad narrative was strong enough to get a bunch of people to vote for a feeble, disheveled old man who can't think properly. But that's the story, right? It's quite simple. France has pitched to the U.S. and others on a plan to remove foreign fighters from Libya. The plan seen by Politico, yeah, we get it. But what's this photo? I wonder what Macron was really saying. It's a tactical shift for Emmanuel Macron, adopting a more collective approach that could end up offering a foreign policy win to someone else. Joe Biden pool photo. Getty Images. Well, as you can see, there are Australian outlets that are pointing out that Joe Biden is not all with it. I bring you now to this article from timcast.com. Biden snaps at CNN reporter, suggests she might be in the wrong business. He can't stand up to Emmanuel Macron because he's in a position of weakness. When Anthony Blinken was having discussions with China, what did China say? That America is not negotiating from a position of strength. Okay. Well, they say all empires don't last forever. America is certainly an empire in many respects. Maybe this is it. China's walking all over Blinken. Macron's walking all over Biden. So what does Biden do? Like a schoolyard bully who gets yelled at by his dad, he goes and takes it out on other people. Check this out from timcast.com. President Joe Biden became quite testy with CNN's Caitlin Collins at his Geneva press conference on Wednesday. The exchange took place following the president's press conference regarding his meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin. As Biden went to leave, reporters began shouting questions in an attempt to get his attention. One of them succeeded by asking about Americans detained in Russia. So we have Aaron Rupar here via Twitter. Biden, in response to Peter Doocy's question about the origins of COVID, what we should be doing is rallying to work on what is going to be the physical mechanism available to detect early on the next pandemic and have a mechanism by which we can respond to it. What the hell? When did I say I was confident? If you don't understand that, you're in the wrong business. Biden gets upset at Caitlin Collins' shouted question as he tries to leave the news conference. That's weird. Why is Biden screaming at CNN of all people? I'm not going to walk away on that, Biden asserted, stopping to speak to the press. Why are you so confident he'll change his behavior, Mr. President? Collins asked. I'm not confident he'll change his behavior. Where the hell? What do you do all the time? When did I say I was confident? The clearly agitated Biden walked up and added, I'm not confident of anything. I'm just stating a fact. But given his past behavior has not changed, and in that press conference, after sitting down with you for several hours, he denied any involvement in cyber attacks. He downplayed human rights abuses. He even refused to say Alexei Navalny's name. So Collins said, so how does it account for a constructive meeting? If you don't understand that, you're in the wrong business, the president said before heading off. Speaking to reporters later on, Biden said that he shouldn't have been such a wise guy. No, this is not Joe Biden losing his cool. This is Joe Biden experiencing, at least in my opinion, not as a medical doctor, dementia. What happens is people who are suffering from this, have outbursts of rage because they just can't think and they're frustrated. Like, why isn't my brain working? What am I supposed to say? I don't know what you're talking about. Stop yelling at me. Biden ain't with it. And he's going to the G7 and standing before Vladimir Putin, of all people. Ben Shapiro tweeted earlier today that Russia is not the threat that people think they are, and that we shouldn't be treating Russia like it's the Soviet Union because their GDP is 1.7 trillion. It's smaller than several American states. I see what Ben's saying. I disagree. Russia has nuclear weapons, and they are particularly influential. Now, Obama mocked Russia, calling them a regional power, and that's a fair point. And I think Ben does make a fair point. Russia isn't the most powerful threat in the world. Obviously, China is. Isn't it funny how when the Trump administration pointed that out, all of a sudden these intelligence agencies started targeting people in the Trump administration as being Russian assets? It's creepy. But I digress. Looking back at Joe Biden, seeing what's happening and seeing these criticisms and seeing him snap, he says, look, to be a good reporter, you got to be negative. You got to have a negative view of life, okay? It seems to me you never ask positive questions. Biden said, I apologize for having been short. Joe Biden, when CNN comes out and says, Joe Biden had a scoop of ice cream and everybody loves him. When you get these pundits on Twitter saying, isn't it great to have a normal president again? And there was right after Joe Biden fired a bunch of missiles into Syria or did a missile strike in Syria and was moving troops through the country. We get these pundits being like, I woke up, no scandals, no media screaming at the media, no conflict. It's just so nice to have a real president. These people, they are zealots to the media, to the church of mainstream media. If they're priests, Brian Stelter and Don Lemon and Jake Tapper don't say it, it never happened. So long as the media doesn't criticize Biden in any meaningful way, people just sit back and think nothing's happening. Hey, out of sight, out of mind. But I'm concerned about these outbursts of anger. You see how Biden comes back out later and says, I apologize for having been short. That's somebody who's president. First, let's say this. Okay, you want to argue that Biden is not experiencing cognitive decline? I think you're a liar. Okay, I think any sane and rational person can recognize the man's brain doesn't work. But let's say, okay, fine. Then he's not professional. He can't keep his cool under pressure. And that's worse than Donald Trump. Biden went on to say that if he had answered that he expected a negative outcome, it would be a guarantee nothing happens. And that you have to put on a optimistic front. Unlike the indignation that Trump faced from the network when he would snap it back at a reporter, Biden received glowing praise from her network after the incident. He was comfortable in that moment, taking off his jacket, answering the questions from top foreign policy reporters in the audience that he doesn't always call on, CNN's Jeff Zeleny commented. Collins herself also defended Biden, saying that apologizing for the way he handled her question is completely unnecessary. Oh, man. Don't you just love how broken the media is? So Brian Stelter's ratings are in the trash hole. Down from... I guess he can't muster up any real ratings. CNN's Brian Stelter draws smallest audience of 2021 as Reliable Sources gets crushed by media buzz. Reliable Sources has hit embarrassing new lows in various ratings, measurables on a regular basis. You know, there's good news and bad news here. They say that Reliable Sources has failed to attract 1 million viewers for 11 straight weeks. Yeah, well, he used to get like 500,000. All right. Now, what did Stelter get? 752,000 views on Sunday. Viewers. That's still a lot. So sure, the ratings are falling. There's a lot to be said for that. But ratings across the board for a lot of people have gone down in a variety of ways. Truth be told, it is particularly bad for CNN and not so much for everybody else. Many conservative commentators are stable or seeing their ratings go down only a little bit because we're not in the political season anymore. But you see, CNN, they live on just saying nice things about Joe Biden. That was their game. During the Trump era, that's what you would get. Trump would say something and they would scream. And then the Biden zealots, the cult, would just be like, yay. Well, Trump's gone. They lost one of their biggest selling points for the cult. Orange man bad. Yeah, well, Orange man not here. So they lose viewers like crazy. But they've become this shell of their former selves. Not like CNN was ever the greatest news source to begin with. But I used to have CNN running on my TV. I don't know. You can't actually see it. I have a TV. I used to have CNN on. You know why? Because when breaking news would happen, they'd say like, breaking, this just happened. I'd be like, that's great. And one day I turned on CNN and it was a panel talking about Trump. And I was like, well, I'll leave it on. And then the whole day was just them talking about Trump and various panels. And I was like, okay, what is happening in the world? Change channel to Fox News. Fox News is talking about inclement weather and disasters. Fox News is talking about conflict in the Middle East. And I'm like, sorry, I mean, I'm actually getting news from Fox right now, not from CNN. They turned themselves into a network to just lick the feet of Joe Biden and the Democratic Party. Well, those people didn't actually care about the Democratic Party. They cared about Donald Trump, and Donald Trump is gone, and now they're losing those ratings. I don't want to get too far off of the main topic, though, but I do want to point out when Biden has this like dementia snap where he just gets really angry and just starts yelling at a reporter, you'll notice that in some instances Biden will be talking, and all of a sudden he'll just start yelling. And as I described, like what people say to me is they're talking and their brain starts slowing down and they're trying to think of what to say. Like, look, everything I'm doing right here is unscripted. I have no teleprompter, no script, nothing's written down. I do preliminary research. I pull up the sources and then I just talk off the top of my head. I have a lot of people who come here and they're like, you don't use a prompter when you do these videos? And I'm like, no, how would I do it? What? No, absolutely not. And there are periods, like it happens to everybody, where you lose your train of thought. And I've been on the IRL podcast talking and say, okay, I lost my train of thought. Now imagine if that happens every single time you try speaking. Eventually you're trying to focus and you're just, the idea you wanted to say, it's gone, and you're getting angrier and angrier. It keeps happening. And then you snap and explode, start yelling at people. That's what's happening with Joe Biden. So what can we expect other than President Kamala Harris? And how soon? I mean, after this failure of a performance at the G7 where Biden is just getting screamed at, I got to be honest. I don't think Emmanuel Macron would point the finger and get in the face of Kamala Harris that way, because she's pretty nasty. Yeah. I mean, she kept inmates in prison beyond their potential parole because she wanted to use them as slave labor to fight wildfires in California. That is a whole new level of despotism. Okay, well, maybe not a whole new level, but that's certainly evil in my book. Force them to fight wildfires? Yeah, for $1 an hour. Because you can enslave people as long as they've been convicted of a crime. Well, Kamala could have let them go based on their parole conditions, but she decided, we're going to keep them and make them fight fires. That's horrifying. But with all that being said, I can only imagine that if Emmanuel Macron came up to her and got in her face, she'd just be like, and she'd scream at him. Joe Biden looks like, I can't do it. Feeble, disheveled old man. Hey, Trump's old too, but he's spry, for whatever reason. Now we'll talk about the story one last bit where we get in trouble on YouTube. Trump called Biden a mental, say, arthard while struggling in the polls in early 2020, according to a new book. I believe it. I absolutely believe it. YouTube doesn't like us saying that word, apparently. Chuck Schumer recently described children as, I believe it or not, you can't say that word on YouTube. Isn't it stupid? Mentally disabled, but the R word. No joke. Even Business Insider has blurred the word. If I say it, YouTube could actually take this video down. Isn't that dumb? That's the world we're living in right now. Run by stupid people for stupid reasons, and they try and call me stupid for pointing it out. Well, Donald Trump reportedly called Biden that, and I believe it. I mean, first of all, behind closed doors, I'm sure Trump said a whole bunch of crazy things. But I also think, while certainly a bit derisive, he's getting the context right. Joe Biden's brain don't work. We all know it. Australia News, they know it. This is news.com.au saying it. This is, Emmanuel Macron yelling at Biden. And according to Jack Posobiec, White House officials said Trudeau was overheard saying that Kamala Harris will be president before the end of 2022. What has become of us? I can't say it's all bad. Let me tell you guys something. I'm fairly libertarian in a lot of ways, fairly moderate libertarian, a little left-leaning tendencies, some right-leaning tendencies. You know how it goes. And I don't like the American war machine. I don't like that we dump all of our tax money into just funding war overseas. I don't like the idea that Americans who live in cities are gluttonous, lazy slobs who live in concrete cubicles that smell like sour milk. I don't like that those people then demand that hardworking people around the country pay their bills. I don't like the idea that these people took out massive loans to go party in college and now want the working class to pay their bills through a tax or through debt forgiveness. I don't like any of those people. And all of that's only possible because we live in the empire of luxury. Now, these people in the cities need to learn how to roll up their sleeves and go chop some wood so they can get a fire going. They need to stop relying on fossil fuels while simultaneously blaming everybody else for fossil fuels. If you want to live in a big city with a massive cost of living that's extremely difficult to maintain, that produces the bulk of the pollution, and then complain about it, don't come yelling at me. So you know what? Maybe the American empire crumbles. Well, the good news is, I guess, these people get a hard wake-up call and maybe do some hard work for once in their lives. Many of these people who live in these cities, they work for, office buildings and tech firms where they get paid $50,000, $60,000 starting jobs, like out of college in some instances. Not always. Some people, you get like 40 or more. And then I look at the people who do actually do hard work getting like 15, 20 bucks an hour. And I'm like, why are they getting paid less than you? Don't get me wrong. You got people in cities, they work trades, they do hard work. But these cities are where the problems are the Democrats keep complaining about. You know what? If you do not defend your country, if you do not believe in it, then you do not deserve to reap its rewards. Of course, this means many conservatives understand if the U.S. loses its status or the petrodollar, we all are going to be worse off for it. But I kind of think that the people who live in the middle of nowhere, who have their own farms, gardens, and chickens, and well water and solar panels, are much better equipped to survive a weakened American empire, or just America reverting back to not being an empire, than the city people. City people going to panic. They're going to freak out and they're going to go running. I got a garden. We're growing a bunch of vegetables. We got chickens. We're going to have eggs. We got recommended to do water glassing for the eggs where you can preserve them for a long period of time. We are getting we're getting off the grid completely. I mean, we've got satellite internet. We've got a bunch of different backups. We do have satellite. I know internet puts us on the grid. What I mean is we're getting our own electrical system. We have our own well system. We want to be self-sufficient because we actually care about the planet. We actually want to be responsible. The people who live in these big cities who prop up people like Biden want to watch it burn, and they want you to pay their bills. Anyway, I don't want to rant on a different subject now. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you all then.